A beer. God, I love Motherhood.
I know. I loved Motherhood too because I just always this is what like my MILF era is.
Hell yeah.
It's not about changing who you are because you're a mom now. It's maintaining the cool with a body. And that's why I'm still shotgunning beers with my kids, because I want that kid to grow up and be like, look at my dope ass mom shotgunning a beer with me in her arms.
Absolutely. No, I think it's so much fun to just be who you are and have so much fun and show your kids that. Because it's just like, we should show our kids authentic joy, like whatever that is to us. And there's plenty of people in this world who will be like, oh my God, she's shotgunning a beer and she has a baby. But like, it's not like we've had 18 beers. Like,
I know.
Like,
oh my gosh, I know. I'm not hammered holding my baby.
Yeah. It's like, let's not be dramatic. Like, it's really okay. And it's also important to model like moderation and like knowing your limits and like sharing like, hey, mommy maybe didn't always make the best decisions, but we learned, and here's how I'm going to impart my wisdom onto you, my little one. So like, I don't know. I think that wasn't modeled for me growing up. So I had to find out a lot of stuff on my own. And I just love the idea of being like, Jay, we're gonna teach you everything mommy knows. Good, bad, ugly.
I appreciate that you're doing that with Jay. My mom did that with me, and I feel very lucky because she was so radically honest with me while I was a child and in middle school about questions that I had and her own experiences. And as a result, I always felt very confident to come to her with questions or issues that I had that were very sensitive. And I knew so much from her that I never kept anything from her. She always knew when I was like going to a party or when I was sleeping over someone's house, but lying to my dad. And because I had that relationship and that foundation, I never snuck out. I never got super drunk. I never I didn't do any of the traditional high school bad things because I knew I had that touchstone in her. Yes. And I think that Jay will experience the same thing.
I hope so, because from what obviously I don't know like the intimate details of you and your mother's relationship, but I feel like from the conversations we've had, it seems like you have a very beautiful relationship even now. Like when you talk about leaving teaching, several times I was editing the episode of the podcast, my podcast that you were on, and a couple times you were just like, yeah, my mom and I talked about it. And then it's like this huge life decision that you made. And it's like, I just want that. Like, that's so wonderful.
It is. And there is a line to toe because you want to be a mom and a friend, but you don't necessarily want to be way too much of one or the other. And so that can be very difficult. So we have to be mindful of that. And I don't know what my relationship is going to be with Hawthorne. I'm sure it's going to be very different because I don't have a girl, but at the same time, in the same breath, it was a little bit more difficult because sometimes our relationship did veer more towards friendship. And then I felt almost like more of a responsibility for my mom and for the things that might have been going on that I shouldn't have been concerned about because I was a child. But overall, the honesty, I think, absolutely changed my trajectory and my behavior.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm so glad that you mentioned that too, because it's a thought that I've had. Like growing up with my mom, she was always like, I am your mother, not your friend. And I went the opposite direction where like I very much internalized that. And now we have a really lovely relationship, but it was not like that until I moved 2,500 miles away from home. And we developed it. But, you know, there is that line to toe, and it's something that I think about a lot. But I think, you know, I think we've said this I think we've talked about this before, but because we're not perfect, like I know that I'm not a perfect person, so I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm just going to try to take off of her cues and do the best I can. But right now I'm like, she's only 8.5 months old. Like, you don't have to think about that right now, but it's hard not to, you know, you project so much into the future.
I know. I mean, we can say this over and over again. We're going to fuck up our kids. Mistakes are going to be made. the true growth and learning and relationship building comes in the repair, comes from making a mistake, hurting, doing something that's not aligned with our values, but then coming back to our kid and saying, listen, I did something wrong. This is what I did. This is how it made you feel. And this is what I'm going to do in the future. And obviously that not only models how to handle failure for your kids, but it also shows your kid how much, I think, how much you value their relationship with you. You're not just going to gloss over it or sweep it under the rug. And then it humanizes us as well. So I'm just leaning on that. As long as I am mindful, aware of what's going on with my actions and how it's affecting my child, and being able to come back and repair, I think that I will fuck him up, but I'll fuck him up a lot less than I would otherwise.
Totally. And how many parallels, I don't know about you, but when I was listening to you talk about that, I was drawing so many parallels to teaching and like authentic relationship building and guiding our students through that, because I was a big proponent of restorative justice and restorative conversations over like traditional PBIS, because I feel like having those restorative conversations with students while they're in conflict with one another and living that out through my relationships with colleagues, parents, any stakeholders, and students themselves really was what set me apart as a teacher, because I may have not always had the best pedagogy or management. I may have made, whatever, we're all growing as teachers, but I always had a lot of pride in how my relationships were so strong. And it really just comes from living that out. And it's really something I cherish from my time teaching.